away.
All right.
Righto. So, yeah, we're going to talk about goal setting this week, but what were you just saying then,
Well,
Rob?
I just come across a few interesting studies, which I'm sure Mick is also going to give us some information on. But yeah, some interesting studies on goal setting. I listened to a lady, Dr. Emily Belkitis, on Human's podcast.
Butchered that name.
I know, sorry. Apologies to Dr. Emily. But yeah, she was quite interesting. Just you think about goal setting as like, oh, I'll just say I'm going to do something and I'm going to do it.
That's pretty much what I've brought to the show. Show over. All right, it's been great talking to you guys.
But I guess to achieve a goal, there's a whole lot more to it, isn't there? There's a whole lot more the process mentally and emotionally.
Mm. Is that about people's different mental states or abilities? Like you said, Matty, you're a kind of person that would just go, okay, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do it. Maybe your mindset is like that.
It's probably like learning, isn't it? Probably everyone has a different method that works for them. Like some people like to read stuff, and some people like to get spoken word given to them or whatever. And maybe goal setting is the same. Like people just have something that sort of works for them.
Yeah. But I bet you anyone listening to this is going to have a new goal come the new year. I think I read somewhere 95% of goals are made as New Year's resolutions or something like that. In the start of January.
Is that a good or a bad
thing? Or is
thing?
it 95% of them fail? The ones that are made
probably
at the start of January, 95% of them fail.
It's probably both. Probably 95% are made in January, and probably 95% of those also fail. Because, well, yeah, it's obviously a topic we need to talk about, isn't it? Because obviously people do have goals that they don't achieve, and there's a reason for that. So
we've got our guru psychologist over there in Queensland.
Sure do.
How
you going, mate?
How are you guys? Everyone getting on well?
Yeah, mate. Yeah, it's a lovely day over here. How's the weather over there in Queensland?
Can we edit that
It's
out?
been bloody hot over here.
boo-hoo.
It has been 38, 37, 38, but max humidity. We've just started to get our first sort of rain today, actually, for the wet season.
Oh, wow.
Must be really tough living in a tropical paradise right near the beach, mate, with lovely weather. Heart goes out to you.
Yeah. No, I'm certainly not complaining, mate. Certainly not complaining.
So kick us off, Mick. Kick us off with some goal setting info. What can you give us?
Look, this is one that I'm into. It was motivation, and it was a unit that I absolutely gobbled up when we did it as a part of my psychology degree, and it's such a diverse topic. It's a wide-ranging topic because obviously as individuals we're all wired very, very differently. But we sort of discussed as a team, guys, heading into the new year. We're always looking to add value to our own lives, but also our listeners, and so we started to speak about goals and how they work. And I think if we start off, I guess, with a couple of helpful tips for setting goals, I think one of the most important ones that comes up, I think, regularly across many different books and different psychological frameworks and all that sort of thing is, if you're setting a goal, make it specific. And it doesn't matter who it is. Everyone seems to speak to the level of success in terms of goal attainment being directly relative to how specific a goal is set. And so I think if people are heading into a new year, Matty, you were just saying, I think someone was just saying, I think it was Matty, that a lot of goals fall over before they sort of start when people set goals for the new year. I think a lot of the time it's because they're referencing back into something they didn't achieve in the year previous. But then they're not actually being specific enough about the goal that they set. And so, as I said, the level of precision around that goal is directly proportionate a lot of the time in many of the studies that I've looked at to goal attainment. So if we were to break that down, guys, let's talk about a goal like weight loss. People might set out and a really poorly structured goal might be something like, okay, I'm 100 kilos, I'd like to get down to 20 kilos.
Sounds doable.
Now, yeah, so depending on, you know, a variety of factors there. But what I would always do, sitting down with someone in order to work towards that goal is then we have to flesh it out. We have to add meat to it. So not only would that be about saying, okay, well, here's our starting point. Let's say the start of the new year, January 1. What's the time period that I'm giving myself to achieve that goal? Okay, I'd like to have that goal achieved by, you know, the end of March. Fantastic. So then we break down that 20 kilos over that period of time. But then we need to add further flesh in. So differently to what I'm presently doing, what am I going to do in order to achieve that goal? So again, some people might write down something like, well, I'm going to go to the gym, or I'm going to eat better. But again, it's about the specifics in terms of what that actually looks like. So I'm going to, so I always, when I work with people that I'm working with goals on, we set a goal and then we work backwards. And we're quite forensic about how we do that. So, you know, for a weight loss goal like that, what we'd be looking at doing is, okay, how active are you at the moment? I go for 2 or 3 walks a week or whatever. Okay, we want to incorporate in some strength and conditioning training. We want to up our daily steps to 10,000 steps. So how many days a week are we going to be going to the gym? How many days a week are we hitting those step targets? What does my diet look like? How many times a week am I drinking? The more that we can add specifics into that goal, I think 9 times out of 10, it will absolutely drive people toward hitting the target at the end. The second thing that I think is really, really important, particularly for long-term goals, is having micro steps along the way. So we want to have these little check-in points, and these check-in points, no matter what the goal, are really, really important because it keeps people engaged in long-term goal attainment. So, you know, like some people might set out to achieve a goal like, I want to save $20,000 this year. You know, I want to save 20 grand. I want to, you know, wipe a big chunk of money off my mortgage. But then, as you guys know, sometimes through the year for a goal like that, things pop up. You know, whether it's one of the kids getting sick or something happens with the car or something like that. Those mini crises along the way can be really, really deflating for people when they're working towards a goal. And so it's important to have the check-in points so that we can go, okay, I might not have achieved this part of this goal here, but what are my reasons for it? Is there something that I need to adjust in terms of the specifics in order to drive me further towards success? Or was it just a crisis that was out of my hands and I'll be able to account for that over future months? So specifics is a really, really important one, and micro check-ins is absolutely massive, no matter what the goal is, for checking in along the way and making sure you're on track.
So those check-in points you could actually phrase as like short-term goals. So multiple short-term goals leading up to and related to your long-term one.
Absolutely.
Because that was one of the points that I sort of took out of looking into the goal setting was short-term goals to enhance long-term achievement, visualization and self-talk. And during the looking at the short-term goals, I come across this study that showed that humans and animals become more energetic the closer they are to obtaining a desired object or a goal. So they did this little experiment with rats. They made them familiar with a maze, and then the next step of that was to put a food source at the end of a maze. They attached these sort of like, I don't know, quite cute little jackets on the rats with a sensor to monitor their pull or their resistance against that feed. So they let the rats through this maze. They continued through, and as they got closer to the end of that maze where the food was, where they knew the food was, the tension on that thing became a lot stronger. So a lot stronger than where they were at the start of the maze, which is a little bit sort of like representative of a person with a goal. You know, you do start off, say you've got a long-term goal and you haven't really implemented short-term goals to achieve that long-term one. it's quite daunting
Mm.
to look at that goal and say, okay, I'm going to knock off 20 grand off my mortgage in 12 months, or I'm going to lose 20 kilos or 30 kilos in 6 months. If you break it down, then there's no reason really to have goals that are too far away. So the more short-term goals you've got, then the more chance you've got of greater momentum and energy on the path to achieving that long-term goal. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Mm.
So the challenge of achieving a long-term goal is made easier and more enjoyable by more attainable, regular interval short-term ones.
That makes sense.
Mm.
Mickey, or you guys in general, do you reckon there's a certain personality type where it's valuable only to set a short-term goal that's more achievable rather than having a longer-term, like daunting goal? Like if you're very overweight, you're 150 kilos and your goal is you want to lose 70 kilos or something huge like that, like a really big goal. Do you think for some people, like not even mentioning the 70 kilo goal so they don't get too daunted and just having a shorter term one and using a series of shorter term ones, or is it good to have it in context and have both?
Mate, I reckon you're spot on.
Because, that old analogy, like eating an elephant, it's daunting. You've got to eat it one piece at a time sort of thing and not think about the whole thing. Do you think there are certain, like for me, I almost find if I set a really daunting goal, it's easier for me than setting like quite an achievable one.
Yep.
But I think the reverse would be true for a lot of people as well, where sometimes they might look at something and go, oh my God, I can never lose 70 kilos, or I can never save $100,000 for a home loan deposit or whatever.
That's too far out.
It's too far. I'm never going to do it.
Yeah.
I'm just going to give up. Maybe I'll get to $5,000, or maybe I'll lose 5 kilos. That's as much as I can do.
Yep.
Do you reckon sometimes it's easier to almost not trick them, but assist them by using a different method, which would be sort of like just short-term goals? I don't know. Is that a thing, Mickey? What's your opinion on that?
That's what you're talking about.
Can I just butt in with another study just to reinforce what you said there, Smithy?
Okay.
There was this study that showed that it was like a psychological sort of study that people who are less fat, obese or overweight see or visualize physical objectives, maybe like, a mountain to climb or a distance to run or a weight to push, as further, harder, heavier, or more challenging than a person who is more fit. So they perceive that performance to achieve a goal as a lot harder, or they look at that goal as harder to attain than a person who is maybe fitter, more sound, or capable. So I reckon that's a good point for people to keep in mind, particularly like in the new year when the festive season's over and people are looking at physical fitness and health goals. If you're a person that is overweight or unfit, be aware of that, because when you do set your goal, or even as you progress to start achieving that goal, and you think, this challenge, this task, this is too hard. This is too hard for me. But that's just your brain sort of telling you your physical capabilities, or do you know what I mean? It's hard to explain, but they do see that objective is harder than someone that is more capable or fitter.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Doesn't it?
I think for things that are difficult, I think that even high achievers, though, it doesn't. Well, I guess what I'm saying here is it doesn't even have to be a long-term thing like losing 70 kilos. It can be smaller than that, but I totally agree with what you're saying, Matty. And I had an example of this just in the last week. We're working with some high performance kids over here in Queensland for running. So we've got a squad of about 15 kids. They're all, I would say, state quality runners, high achievers, highly motivated, all that sort of thing. And what's been happening is as the weather has heated up here, the kids will arrive to the interval session, and what's the first question that they'll ask? What do you think?
Is it going to be hot today? I don't know.
How far are we running today?
Yeah, what are we doing?
What are we doing?
Right? And what they're looking to do is compartmentalize and break and instantly go, fuck, this is either going to be really, really fucking hard, or okay, we can work through that.
Kids sweat.
And so,
interesting.
Yeah, and so I played around with that in order, not that they knew this at the time, but as a bit of an experiment
That's an
myself.
evil laugh there, mate.
Yeah. The first few weeks, I actually wrote the session down and I told them exactly what they'd be doing.
Yeah.
And just to put this in context, this isn't easy stuff. This is, we might have done a pyramid run where we went, 10 minutes warm up into a stretch, a dynamic stretch, and then the main set might be something like 100 meters at max with a short rest, 200 meters at max, short rest, 300 meters at max, short rest, 400 meters at max, short rest, 500 meters at max, short rest, and then back down 4, 3, 2, 1.
That's a solid session.
Now this is a solid session, particularly for kids in maximum heat, maximum humidity. Now, they would look at that session and you could see them all looking around at each other, and they were all, one of the things we're really, really big on is, do we fill each other's cups here, or do we drag our mates down? Because as we all know, guys, when things are tough in life, those negative attitudes, we've spoken about I don't know that I love the saying, but it's like a cancer, it spreads.
Yeah.
So one little negative voice saying, fuck, that's too hard, it's going to be hot. Next thing, the next kid might go, then the next kid might go, and it just builds. It's like an energy.
It's easier to talk that way. It's easier
100%.
to talk the negative than it is to puff your chest up and talk positive.
Yeah,
it's just
absolutely.
an easier way.
So I would say to the kids, one, in that moment, I'd be saying, how are you contributing to the group at the moment? Are you building people up? Are you filling their cups, or are you dragging people down? And have some self-awareness. And I talk to them about the fact that in these sessions, I'm standing out there, I'm screaming, I'm yelling, I'm positively motivating these kids. And so I would say to them, I said, if I stood there and I said, you can't do this, it's too hot, you're not going to get to the end of this session, how hard do you think it would be? And they said, well, we couldn't do it. So when I'm positive and I'm keeping you upbeat, how much of a difference does it make? It makes a massive difference. So I really enhance the fact that their own positive chat going on within their head is equally, if not more important than the conversation I have with them outside of that.
That's awesome. That's awesome, mate. So not just physical training, but you're training them mentally as well.
Absolutely. It's, if anything, for me, a more important thing is that we're building these kids to be amazing humans. The sport is a secondary component to that. But just getting back to what I was saying in terms of what I got to see, similar to what you guys were saying, is when they would show up and they would see the whole session, it was eating the whole apple in one go. It was too much for them to comprehend. So what we then started to do, they would show up, okay, what have we got? Don't worry about what we've got. Here's what the first effort is. The first, let's say it was the same session. The first effort's just 100 meters. Then you get a rest. And I would just give them the session bite by bite. And all of a sudden, they were much more positive. They were much more upbeat. They were finishing an effort, and rather than trying to sort of figure out how they were going to get through the effort that was 7 efforts further on, they were just focused on the moment. So they were present.
That's awesome.
And we speak about that all the time. It's just about being present. And I hate to use these, age-old acronyms, but I think it speaks really well to sort of what you were touching on then, Roo, in terms of how we structure these into smaller goals, how we can check in and all that sort of thing. We've all heard that SMART acronym before. You guys would be familiar with that.
Yep.
So we keep our goals specific. We allow ourselves to measure them. Okay, they have to be able to be measurable. So how do we check in along the way? They must be achievable. So, like Matty was saying, for someone that isn't hyper motivated, setting a goal to lose, say, 70 kilos or save 20 to 50 grand, that's going to be way too much. But breaking that goal down to be, okay, in the next week, I just want to lose, 3/4 of a kilo, or I just want to lose a kilo. And all of a sudden what it becomes is, over 1 week, 2 week, 3 week, 4 weeks, I've hit a kilo, I've hit a kilo, I've hit a kilo, I've hit a kilo. Then they start to see that light at the end of the tunnel. Then they're creating those now new positive neural pathways in the brain, where rather than telling themselves they can't do something, or they can't achieve what they want to achieve, they're starting to achieve what they want to achieve. And that comes from, the last two parts of the acronym being, setting realistic objectives and also making sure that they're time focused. But I definitely think making sure that you've got these smaller check-in points, or just start with a small goal. If an exercise I think it's just an easy, simple example, and it's one that a lot of people put into practice starting into the new year. For some people, setting a goal to go and run a marathon, too big. To go from not doing any running to saying, I'm going to run a marathon at the end of the year. Yeah, there's some people who do that. But for the average punter or people who are more motivated, like Maddie was saying, why not set yourself an objective to run once a week, then run twice a week, then run 3 times a week, and build yourself up from there so that you're not setting yourself up for failure.
Yeah. I guess that scenario too, mate, that you're doing with the training, just drip feeding them with their, their first 100, then their 200, their 300. From a physical aspect, you're probably likely to get greater output from the runners as well, because they're not sort of conserving themselves, thinking ahead of that 4 and the 500. They're taking each one as the last run they've got to do, so they put everything into it.
They're not pacing themselves sort of thing and thinking, shit, I've still got to do that 500-metre sprint.
Yeah.
So the 300 will go easy or whatever.
Yeah.
Totally. Absolutely. That's 100% correct. And that can also go the other way because, on a really complex and difficult session like that where you're going up and then down again, if they exhaust themselves completely at the start, then it is really a hang on towards the end. But I think what we get to see in the kids then is that real mental resilience, working through, calling on that internal character and going, okay, just push through. And I think, getting away from them and speaking to people in general, isn't that what life's about? Like complex times, difficult times bring out our true character.
Well, it's like building resilience. You often talk about the lack of resilience in kids these days, and that's just a perfect way of building it, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it is, and it's done in a really controlled and measured, observed environment, one that, and I know this is a reason that we've had such good uptake with these particular kids, but the parents know that they don't just get challenged, they also get supported. And there's been times kids have shown up and they've got any number of complex life situations going on, and they're the times where we have to put our arms around them, wrap them up and let them know they're okay too. And I think that also is really, really important with goals. And again, I think I think we've spoken about this in another podcast, but it was something I read years ago, and it was, you are the sum of the 5 people you spend the most time with in your life. I think when you're setting your goals at the start of the year, or when you're checking in with your goals, or whenever you choose to set your goals, this is something I constantly come back to when I'm sitting down with my wife, or I'm chatting, to people who are sort of influential within my own life about where I'm going and what I'm doing. And I think it's really, really important. You want to make sure the people you've got around you are lifting you up and they're filling your cup and they're driving you with 100% intention towards where you want to go as a human being. And I know that's something I'm focused on. I know it's something you guys are very, very aware of yourselves, knowing that, the different motivations you guys have all got within your lives. But I think that can be a real tripping hazard for people too.
Don't you reckon when you go through something really hard, and Mickey, you spoke about like the negative part of that, which can be sort of negative talk, it's a bit of a cancer, it can go through and really knock off people's motivation. Don't you reckon also the opposite is true? If you survive something really difficult, especially in a group, it really forges some strong friendships, like looking back on things. If you are a group of people and you go through something really tough together, but you sort of triumph over it, it almost like forges a bit of a stronger friendship moving forward. I reckon that's a really good, almost like team builder in a way, when you sort of go through real hardship together and you share that experience, but you triumph over it. It's so exhilarating, and it's something that you can really look back on and be proud of, and sort of respect each other for. I reckon so the whole positive negative mindset thing.
I'd look, and I tossed up about whether to share this, but I will for today. I was sitting down looking at my own goals, and I'm pretty forensic with this. So I have very short-term goals right through to 5. I have a 5-year plan, and I've had one goal on my had one goal on my board for 6 years now, and I shared this with you guys in the last couple of weeks, but that goal was to get my wife back to her health, and I look at that every day, and I've had broken that goal down into everything that I could do as a husband to support that. And we were really lucky. Excuse me. Sorry, boys.
It's all right, mate.
We were very lucky in the last fortnight because my lovely wife went in for her annual scan, what's now an annual scan, and she was actually given 6 years clear from stage 4 cancer. And her oncologist has said that such is her positive health that he doesn't actually feel there's any necessity to continue scanning her. And it's just, the most incredible news for us as a family. And, what you just said then, Matty, couldn't be further from the truth. Like, when I reflect back, and I know I got onto all you guys in sort of the immediate days after that, but, it's really weird to say this, but to get to the outcome that we've got to as a family, and reflect back on the changes in my life and the changes in our family lives, the changes in my friendships, the connections, the awareness, the knowledge that we've acquired, all of those things. It's scary to say this, but I'd go through what we've gone through 100 times out of 100 if we could get to this outcome, even going through all that hardship to be where we are, because where we're at as a family and what it's done for us as a family in terms of bringing us closer together, challenging us to really take life by the horns and take up every opportunity and go and have experiences and do all those things, but also, my awareness around my friendships and around my connections and where I spend my time, who I consult for advice, the learnings that we've acquired, it's just been massive. And I think that I'm such a big believer in what you just said, Matty, that the greatest learnings in life come from, these adversities. And, no doubt there was a lot of luck involved for us as well, but that was very evenly matched by a fucking huge amount of work and a lot of fucking goal setting. And, so what you said then couldn't ring truer for me.
Well, mate, it's awesome news. And, we got the news a couple of weeks ago, and thanks for sharing it. We were so stoked. But it's credit to you guys as a family, because since this all started, you've put so much positive energy into it. Yeah. And you've just been so proactive in looking at every means possible to overcome that disease, with backed behind this massive positive energy. And that's a credit to you and your wife for that. You should feel really proud of that, because it's inspirational, to attack something like that and to take it head on. And we're talking about goal setting today, and I guess the underpinning thing of a goal is positive energy. And you guys have displayed that, 100 times over.
Yeah, and you talk about being lucky. I think you make your own luck at times. You've worked very hard on that. Like you said, you set those goals, you achieved them, you work really hard to get to that position. Yeah. So I think luck, maybe a little bit, but you make your own luck.
Yeah.
Yeah. You guys just did so much work around mindset and gaining all the knowledge around wellness and nutrition and lifestyle, and
made some big changes too.
Some massive changes, and it's obviously all paid off massively. But you talk about luck, but like CJ said, your efforts, around mindset and physical lifestyle and eating and everything have definitely played a major role in that. And I think if you look at the statistics, which you would know 1,000 times better than me around survival rates, I think you've massively influenced your outcome by what you've done. So good on you guys. I'm so happy for you. And you really deserve it. And good on you.
No, thanks, lads. Thanks. I think that that would probably be another really good point around what you're saying, though, in terms of if people could set goals they connect with. I think we've spoken a lot about, and this speaks to the ancestral man thing as well, and I'm hoping you guys can add a bit in here, but there's a lot of people, we're all living on this hamster wheel, and we're all paying off high interest debt, and we're stuck in this cycle of loading ourselves up, getting in our Monday to Friday, jobs, and we're paying off our debt, and we, until we eventually retire, and then, how motivated are people outside of that? And I think if I look at what we've achieved as a group in the last couple of years in setting this up and coming together, I'm on the other side of the country, and we all understand logistically it can be difficult at times, and we're all putting in and doing different things, and it's been really difficult sometimes to work out and keep the balance, but we're all connected into this. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's something greater than ourselves in what we're doing here. And I think if people can also keep that in mind when they're setting goals, like, challenge yourself to get outside your own little box. Look to work towards a goal that really inspires you. I think that's really important for people as well, because I think there's a lot of people just stuck on that hamster wheel. Then they're not loving their life. They're not embracing their life. I think that's really important for people as well.
Yeah, I think it's important to take a minute sometimes and really reflect on what's important to you, and what do you want to achieve other than just surviving, like you said, with modern life, and we're all busy and we're all doing things. But I think it's hard for some people, or most people, maybe everybody, to really be honest with themselves and reflect on actually what they want to achieve. Like, when you're lying on your deathbed, be that, tomorrow or in 80 years' time, what do you want to have done? What's important to you? And then how do you achieve that? Because I think people are so busy, you don't take the time to take that breath and take that moment, even if you need to go and sit for a whole day and just reflect or meditate or journal or whatever you need to do, but have a real honest discussion with yourself and work out what's important and go and try and chase that.
And when you do achieve something, even if you just have a goal for a day, so you wake up in the morning and you go, right, I've got a leg workout today, and you knock that off, you knock it on the head, and congratulate yourself for it. So for the good things that you do set out to achieve and you achieve them, like self-talk, I reckon is a massive thing, and a bit of a hurdle with regards to goal setting, but even just mental health itself. I mean, I know I'm trying to deal with my own self-talk. Often I'll be doing a task and something will go wrong, and I'll call myself a fucking idiot. Oh, you dickhead, what'd you do that for? But all those times I say that, it's compounding this factor, this concept of me being a fucking idiot or a useless bastard or something like that, whatever I'm calling myself. And the amount of times I say that, my brain's going to start believing it. So I have to try to start. I've got to the point now where I've, maybe through wisdom, stopped myself saying that and revert it back to the science or the practicality of what's going on, not blaming myself for it. Okay, so this screw's not going in here because of maybe this reason. It's not because I'm a dumbass. I think self-talk is a big part of goal setting and achieving goals and congratulating yourself. And I'm always a big believer also of using words like I will be or I'm going to be. Because I think if you use the words when you're setting up a goal, I want to be or I need to be, wants and needs change. So let's say New Year's Eve comes by, January 1st, I want to lose 20 kilos in a couple of months. That want can change over time, but if you say to yourself, I'm going to be 20 kilos lighter in 2 months' time or whatever, or I'm going to weigh this amount by this time, I think that's a stronger concept. Like that's a definite. You know, I am going to be, or I am, or I will be.
I am.
You know, I will be. It's a definite and can't change. And I remember when I was in year 9, this is probably the first goal I ever made without even really thinking about it. I said, I will be a phys ed teacher. And that was just the goal that I wanted to be, you know, vocational education class, you know, you're looking at different jobs. I love PE at school. I love being active. I said, I will be a phys ed teacher. And I didn't set out, you know, strategically to achieve that. But maybe by saying that, I started studying hard in year 11 and 12. I got a good mark in TE. I went to uni. I passed uni. and become a phys ed teacher. So I think subconsciously by me saying that, I placed all these little minor steps to achieve it. So I think self-talk is a real positive, you know, I will be, or I'm going to be, whatever.
Mm. Yeah, thoughts and words are bloody powerful, aren't they?
Oh, man.
What you think about yourself and what you say, whether it's what you're saying to yourself or what you're actually verbalizing, that'll play out. That is what's going to happen. If you're a useless piece of shit and you tell yourself that all the time, you will probably end up being a useless piece of shit because that's what you believe.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so powerful.
Yeah.
Thoughts and words. It's amazing.
Yeah, it's underestimated, isn't it, the power of our mind?
Massively. Yep.
It's interesting.
I had a mentor, and he used to write down every single thing the night before that he needed to achieve the next day. And one of the things he spoke about, guys, was he would write down, get up, have a shit, make my bed, have a coffee, like all of these menial little tasks that he needed to, or he knew he would be achieving in the morning. He would write them all down. And what he said it did was because by the time he got into the kitchen, he was already able to tick off 5 things.
Yeah.
Get up, brush my teeth, go to the toilet, make my bed, blah, blah, blah. So he was already setting in place that he was achieving before he'd even walked out the door of his house.
Yeah, that's gold. That's the whole fact of making your bed. The first thing you do in the morning is you make your bed.
Yep.
You've achieved something for the day. If you don't achieve anything for the rest of the day, you made your bed.
Yeah, and I love that. You know, that really, that's something I'm big on with my kids as well is, and my little fella's only 5, but he complains, why do you have to make me bed every day? And I say that to him, Roo, and he doesn't really understand at the moment because, you know, he's 5 years old. Cognitively, he's not on that level, but he still gets up and he makes it. And I think it's a really, for people who struggle with getting to those longer term goals, I think that's a really good way of letting yourself know that you're achieving things, you know, however small they are. And it's a great habit to get into if you can be motivated to do it.
I've never heard anyone say taking a shit is an achievement.
Yes. Did it.
I don't tick that off my list.
That was a good one.
Yeah. Then he specifies, I want to make it a 1 wiper.
Making the bed, I get. Doing a dump in the morning. It's pretty good. But interestingly, that you've brought up a pretty good point, and we bring it back to if you look at goal setting, you talk about sort of it can be something as vast and challenging as overcoming a stage 4 cancer diagnosis. You obviously broke that down into setting goals and having measurable, achievable results, as well as day-to-day stuff like doing a shit, you know, having goals and the ability to tick things off. Yeah, it must be very motivating.
And I reckon it's touched on there, Mickey, visualization. I think that's an important part of goal setting.
with your shit.
Well, don't they reckon you should turn around and have a look at it just to make sure that everything's okay? There's no
I
blood
look
in
at
it.
mine every day.
Yeah.
Good gander and see what's going
Yeah,
on.
yeah. Take a bit of pride when it blocks the toilet up.
Sorry, I derailed us.
But yeah, visualization I think is important with words, pictures, reminders posted around the house. But then those little reminders move to a different place because they can become, inverted commas, unnoticed. They become a part of the scenery, so you stop looking at them. So you need to move them around to prominent places. In the mirror where you're brushing your teeth, and your rear view mirror in your car. Places that you're going to look on a regular basis. And I think visualization is an important part of goal setting. So looking at how you want to be or where you want to be at the end of your goal, or what that looks like.
I think that's a great point, and I think if you look at people who are, the most successful in their fields, we probably speak a lot about sports people and things like that, guys. But like I look at people who are my heroes growing up, like Michael Jordan. I remember watching Kieran Perkins swim, things like that, and you listen to them talk, and that visualization is massive. A lot of these guys, something I definitely employed through my own, sporting experiences that I had, but seeing yourself in the position of being where you want to be and having that full sensory experience. We've spoken before about how, if someone has a car accident, I think we used that example before, and they have that full sensory experience of having the car accident, and then they have the dream that night of having the car accident. The brain can't determine between the thought of the experience and the experience itself. That's the same for positive experiences. So a lot, Michael Jordan, he didn't just take all the game-winning shots. He didn't just win the championships. He would have seen himself, and he speaks a lot about this through different documentaries. He saw himself doing that stuff. He felt himself having the championship, being the most valuable player. He had the experience of doing those things before he lived them out. And I think that, you guys were only just saying a second ago that you effectively are what you tell yourself you are. What you think about, you bring about. So having that experience at a sensory level, and it's a really challenging thing, but it can be achieved through visualization, meditation, and that can be done in many different ways, as we've said before, but going and taking yourself into the experience, even if it was something like having a new car, or setting yourself a goal of buying a four-wheel drive. One of the first things I would say to people to go and do is go and hop in that car, take it for a test drive, and have the sensory experience of what it's like to own that vehicle. I think that would be absolutely huge towards driving that person towards achieving that outcome.
Well, that reminds me of, that mental sort of power of, say you're deciding to buy a certain car, and then as you're driving along before you've actually purchased it, you notice so many more of those types of cars. Have you noticed that?
Yeah.
Because it's the power of your brain recognizing something that you desire. And there's a lot of power in that simple concept. And I guess that's what you're sort of alluding to there, Mick. You visualize yourself seeing something and you see it. And I suppose these elite sports people are probably better at, maybe naturally gifted or more trained at visualizing. They would have visualization techniques and training during their training processes. So for the everyday sort of bozo like us, you'd have to go and make an exerted effort to train yourself to become a better visualizer, or do some study on it.
I'll tell you guys a very quick story about the power of visualization. When I was a young fella, I was a first-year uni student, and I'm quite an introverted fella, and I hate public speaking. I'm like the majority of people. Like, it's just, I don't mind it now, but when I was young, I very much didn't like public speaking. I used to get very, very nervous. And I remember first semester, first year of uni, sitting in the lecture hall, and they were outlining what the unit was going to be for the year. And it culminated in doing quite a big public speaking effort to showcase some results. And it was about 10 weeks away. It was towards the end of the semester. And I remember immediately starting to almost feel physically sick and just terrified of the thought that I had to go and do this talk. It was only in front of about 50 people, but just terrified me. That's where I was at with my public speaking. And I didn't really know about this power of positive thought or anything like that, but I just thought to myself, I'm going to imagine every single day standing up in front of that audience and not having any nerves. And every single day, a few times, I thought to myself, I imagined myself delivering the speech without tension, without stress, and just saying what I wanted to say. And I don't really know why I chose to do that, but I did it for the whole semester. And fast forward to the end, I got up and did my speech, and I had no nerves. I had just conditioned my mind. I'd played that scene in my mind so many times in so much detail. I even knew what room I was going to do it in, and I knew what my surroundings were going to be, and I imagined it in as much detail as I possibly could. And I always imagined a positive outcome and it going well. And it played out like exactly like that. It's like by the time I got up there, I was almost like an actor running out a script that I'd already seen in my mind. And it just worked to a T.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, so I guess that's
good on you, man.
an example of that.
Yeah.
It really helped me.
Power of thought.
Power of thought. All I did was think about it.
Yeah.
Probably thought about it for 30 seconds or a minute a few times a day.
Yeah.
And that was enough to get me over that. And
it's like a sports event. You know,
100%,
often competitors will think about the event the night before, what they're going to do. So they're and even weeks before probably they're thinking about how they're going to perform that event.
Yep.
You know, you got the other side. You know, sometimes back in the day playing footy, your coaches say don't think about the game too much a couple of days beforehand because you might play the game out in your head before you've played it. But I think that's a bit of a negative sort of way of looking at it. I think you can consider a game or a sport and how you're going to play it and picture yourself doing all these great things in that game. And that's going to allow you to have that openness to possibly do those things.
And the opposite's true. If you picture yourself fucking it up, you will.
Yeah.
It bloody happens.
Yeah, definitely.
Picture yourself, I don't know, tripping when you go out on stage or dropping an easy mark or whatever it is.
Yeah.
You'll bloody do it. It's like your brain's so powerful. That biology of belief or whatever it is, if you believe something, positive or negative, chances are it'll play out.
Yeah. So true.
Yeah.
I wonder how that works on a world basis. I mean, the world is going through changes at the moment, and there's negative things going on, and there's positive things going on, and often the negative things are the things you hear most about. But there's this underlying positivity that we can resist the negative changes and positively change the world.
Yeah,
I think as a collective, humans become positively charged together. When that thought spreads, positivity will always overcome negativity.
Yeah, I believe a lot in like the collective consciousness.
Yeah,
both positive or negative.
Yeah,
but I think it's very important for us all to, you hear about high vibes and all that sort of stuff. I 100% buy into that.
Yeah,
it's 100% a thing, and I think there's a reason why when you turn on mainstream media, everything's negative.
Yeah,
people are drawn towards negativity a little bit.
Yeah.
And I think, Mickey, you've probably come across a lot of studies that the human mind is sort of more designed to take in negative information because it's almost more of a safety feature to keep yourself safe from adversity. But, yeah, high vibes, keeping it positive, collective consciousness, I think that's just a massive thing for humanity.
Could you imagine the 6 o'clock news just being a half hour of positive stories?
You never hear a bloody positive one, do you? It's always like, oh, granny got bashed and a little kid got hit by a car and the world economy's fucked and the climate's changing and we're all going to die of bushfires and heat waves. And
they might have one final little positive story at the end of the news.
So you reckon less and less that happens now?
Yeah.
I don't know.
But it's normally something stupid. It's normally something like, I don't know, a dog did a backflip or something like that or something
like a
ridiculous.
chipmunk that learns to water ski or something.
Yeah, exactly. It's something...
I think that's Anchorman.
Yeah, it is.
You're spot on. It's
where I get most of my knowledge from.
Works 100% of the time, 60% of the time, whatever.
So I guess wrapping it up, or not wrapping it up, just sort of a few takeaways for we get closing in on an hour. A few takeaways for the modern ancestral man listener. with our goal setting, this episode will probably come out probably in the new year, close to the new year, after Christmas at least, when everyone's sort of looking to get some positive vibes going, change the last month of drinking and eating too much. Taking away from what sort of Mickey was saying earlier, that SMART acronym I think would be pretty good for the listener.
Yeah.
When we're setting our goals, being specific, having our time frames and little checkpoints in there, having short-term goals that you can kind of tick off, making them achievable and realistic and have a time frame. I think that would be pretty good for the listener to use going forward.
Yep.
Yeah. Another little bit of free advice from the modern ancestral man.
I reckon if you can, try and grab someone to do it with as well. If you can find a positive partner
Always
who's on a similar
someone
journey to you.
Great call.
Well, it's almost accountability, isn't it?
It's accountability.
Yeah.
Like for me, I'm more committed if I feel like I'm letting someone else down.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think
It's
some
more
people are
motivating
like that.
too.
It's
to,
more
to
motivating.
bounce things off some people, isn't it? If you're, I know that 95% stat about people making New Year's resolutions don't ever, come true. It's definitely massive in the fitness industry. If you look at gym memberships, I think 80% of them are taken up in January, and people don't use them. They sign up in January, they go hard for a month or two, and then they're done. But if you have an accountability with a friend, you say, okay, we're going to the gym today, 5 p.m. I'll meet you there after work. Might be a long day at work. If that was just you might go, I'm done here. I'm going home. It's easy. But if you've got some motivation or some accountability, a mate there that's helping you out, I reckon that's a pretty good thing. And we often talk about building a tribe. We talk that a lot in early episodes. I know Mickey's big on the tribe. If you've got your mates around you, your good friends, having that accountability and motivation would help, I reckon.
Definitely. Well, the ancestral man, he'd have his tribe, and they'd be setting goals. They'd be setting a goal for the day. There's a woolly mammoth. We're going to work together. We're going to kill that beast, and we're going to eat it. Let's do it.
Yep.
And if one of the boys is feeling a little bit off today, boys, I'm not really up to spearing that woolly mammoth today. I've got a bit of a sore ankle.
You're out the tribe.
Yeah, no worries, mate. When we bring it back in pieces, you're not getting any of it. You can eat some of the roots and berries.
The hoof. We'll have the liver.
Yeah. Hey, Mick, thanks for sharing that thing, man, about your family. Thanks for sharing that.
Awesome.
It's
awesome news.
You guys have been through the ringer, and you've come out of it. You should be proud. We're proud of you.
Thanks very much. I appreciate that, boys. And I know I said this to you individually, but we wouldn't be where we are without people like you guys who've been behind us. So we are very grateful, beyond grateful. And, that's a big part of the reason that we're doing what we're doing as a group here as well, is to keep on giving back, and not that we've got Joe Rogan listenership yet. And I say yet because I am visualizing myself sitting in Joe Rogan's studio doing our Modern Ancestral Man podcast. But
get us on there, Joe. We're ready.
But boys, we're if we can help one person, which we know we've definitely done. We're doing great things. So I look forward to much more of this over the years.
Great way to end, Mickey.
Good sign off.
Should we get our air guitars ready?
Yeah.
Go
on,
on,
guys.
Go on.
Get on the Modern Ancestral Man Instagram page. Check us out there. We've got our link to all the episodes. We've got our email there. If you want to click on that, send us a message. Let us know how we're going. That'd be great. I'd like to hear some feedback. We often get a bit of feedback.
Yeah.
It's pretty good.
It'd be great to get some feedback from some of our listeners.
Yeah. It's good stuff. Anyway, Happy New Year.
Yeah, Happy New Year, boys.
Yeah.
Merry Christmas.
Yeah. And
You too, boys.
Set those goals for 2023.
yeah, that's it. Wow. We're here. Good luck. See you
All right,
next
boys.
time.
Too big.
See you, boys.
Ta-da.